Good morning, everyone. Yes, that works. Everyone hears me well? Perfect. Welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here today. So my name is Nadège Carlier. Besides working as a PhD student, I am a UN Youth Delegate for Climate. And so this is a mandate organized by the Forum des Jeunes, and with that mandate, I have to carry the voice of the youth on climate issues to our political representatives, and in Belgium and abroad, as I will be at the COP26. And today, this is also what I will be trying to do, carry the voice of the youth, on the topic of climate issues. So the theme of this event is a dialogue between students and the private and semi-public sector on circular economy and climate change, best practices and reflections for the future. So of course this is a very current and urgent topic to address. And the point is really to hear from you, the youth, so I hope you will bring some freshness today here. So you have noticed that we are in the residence of the ambassador. It might seem like a bit of a serious and important and institutional place, but the goal today is really to bring some freshness and to dust off a bit the idea that we might have of embassies.
Serious place.
Yes. It feels like very, very pretty and important. But thank you so much, Mr. the Ambassador, January, for opening your doors today. In the observation of COVID rules, of course, so I will ask you to keep your mask on during the event. I have the luxury to be a bit distant from you, so I will take it off, but yes, thank you. So a bit about context. This event is organized by the embassies of Italy in Brussels, as well with the collaboration of the UK embassy in Brussels. So as you know, these are the two nations that will organize and preside the COP26 in Glasgow. So this event is really about the youth in view of the COP26, of course, but also in view of the Youth4Climate Driving Ambitions Summit. This is a summit that will happen by the end of September in Milano. And the point of this summit is really to bring some youth from the world, the entire world, so that they can reflect on climate issues and give really critical and concrete leads to the ministers who will attend the pre-COP in Milano as well. So the youth have been selected for that event. Maybe you do not all have the chance to go to Milano by the end of the month, but the goal of this event is really that your input will be used to feed that event. So that's really keep your mind sharp, and the point is to listen to you. So thank you again to the ambassadors for listening to the youth and show the willingness to hear from us. I think now we will embark on such a discussion for until noon. And we will start by hearing the Ambassador General.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti, bienvenue, welcome to the Italian Embassy. As you said, it's an honor and a pleasure for us, for the Italian Embassy team, to host this very important dialogue on the way to Milan and Glasgow. And as partners, Italy for COP26, as you know, will host a very significant event in Milan, and we consider crucial to promote the engagement and involvement of young generation in all the decisions related to climate change. This is the reason why, together with the UK Embassy, and I thank Martin, my friend, the Ambassador of UK, we decided last July to hold this very special event in the wake of the very successful meeting we had at the UK Embassy. And I would like to give a special thanks to the Minister for Climate and Environment of the Kingdom of Belgium, Madame Katabi. Thank you for being here, for being our guest of honor. It's very important, your presence and your accessibility, I would say, for all the students. And it's very important that today, this morning, we are going to interact with important representative of the private sector from Italy, from the UK, and I'm very grateful to the Italian private and public companies that are here in the screen: Enel, Enea, the famous Centro per l'Innovazione di Torino, Banca Intesa, thank you, and SNAM. And of course, National Grid from the UK. Thank you so much. Today they will present their best practices on circular economy and climate change, a topic so much important. Above all, let me thank you, all of you, the students. You are the protagonists of this morning. You come from, you are a selection because we couldn't host here. Welcome all the students we would have wanted, but you come from the ULB, VUB, Université Catholique de Louvain, and some Italian students from Catanzaro who are here for an Erasmus exchange. I think it's very important for me to tell you that this is not a white hair driven event, and so with great pleasure we are going then to listen to you, to your considerations, and imagine to send a message, a declaration from this meeting today to the Milan meeting. Grazie a tutti, and I give the floor to my friend, the ambassador of the UK, Martin Sherman.
Good morning, everybody. Very nice to see you all here, and I'd like to first of all say thank you to Francesco for the initiative of the Italian Embassy in convening everybody today, and for the leading role that Italy is playing this year as chair of the G20 and as our partner in the preparations for the UN Climate Conference, COP26 in Glasgow in November, and we look forward to the meeting in Milan, which is a crucial step on the road to Glasgow. So Francesco's also already said this is not an event for people with white or grey hair to speak at, so I will keep my remarks short. Just let me say, though, a couple of words about COP26 in Glasgow and what we hope will be achieved there and why it's so important. So COP26, starting on the 31st of October in Glasgow, is the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement. In fact, the 5th anniversary was last year, but we had to postpone COP because of the pandemic. Now, the Paris Agreement was a huge achievement. It brought the world together to sign up to goals on tackling climate change. But the price of getting to agreement was that the actual commitments made in Paris by individual countries were mostly insufficient. So written into the Paris Agreement was the promise that everybody would come together 5 years later and increase their ambition. It's a voluntary mechanism within the Paris Agreement, so there is no compulsion, and therefore the role of international cooperation, of dialogue, of discussion, of pressure from civil society, from youth groups, the role of business as well, is absolutely vital in making sure that there is the momentum that's necessary to ensure that all of the countries who come to Glasgow in October, November, come with a higher level of ambition and ready to pledge the action they will need to take to ensure that we have a chance, we retain a chance of limiting global temperature increases to 1.5 degrees centigrade compared to pre-industrial levels. And as the latest IPCC report told us, we're not on track, we're badly off track on that. So this is our top priority in the UK, both internationally and domestically. We have a heavy responsibility to try and lead the negotiations for Glasgow and to do all of the diplomatic, political outreach work before Glasgow to try and ensure that all of the countries, all of the leaders who come to Glasgow come with renewed ambition. Now, as we're sitting here in Europe, in the rich world, I just wanted to add one thing that's going to be particularly important at Glasgow and where I hope all of the rich world countries will play a big role. Part of the art of getting to an agreement and to higher ambition in Glasgow will be that the rich countries of the world do more to help the poor countries who have done very little to create the problem of climate change, but who will be already badly affected by it and will be badly hit by it. There's a target of $100 billion per year in finance to help poor countries with adaptation. Again, the rich world hasn't yet reached that target. So it's really important that the UK, Italy, Belgium, all of the other countries of the rich world do more on that front, because we have to, it's morally right, poor countries need help, but also it will be an absolute key to unlocking the kind of agreement we need on implementing the Paris Agreement so that we reach our common goal of tackling climate change and giving future generations and the world a chance. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. the Ambassador Sherman, for these very interesting words. I hope as well that the world will take up this challenge at the COP26. Now I will leave a word to Mr. Katabi, so a Federal Minister for the Environment, Climate, the Green Deal and Sustainable Development. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
As I said, thank you, Ambassador Generali, for this initiative and the invitation. I recognize your and also Ambassador Chairman's efforts to raise the profile of COP26 in Belgium and build on the momentum to foster increased ambition and collaboration. I welcome the opportunity to see students and the academic world more broadly and the private sector to coming together, and to hear your considerations. You all have an essential role to play in the transition to a climate neutral and climate resilient economy and society by 2050. The recent IPCC report leaves little room for doubt. Climate change is a reality that already affects all regions of the world. The future impacts endanger ecosystems, our society, and our economy. Only strong, urgent and coordinated action will enable us to limit the risk of exceeding the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming threshold. Earlier IPCC and other scientific reports has warned us already for the effects of the accumulation of greenhouse gas emissions in our atmosphere and the consequences of extreme weather events in particular. Several vulnerable countries have had to cope with such shocks for years already. Different parts of Europe, including the south of Belgium, were confronted with extreme rainfall this summer. It made us experience firsthand the enormous social, economic, and human cost the effects of climate change can have. Our meetings in Glasgow will be very important in the international climate negotiations. We need clear and ambitious agreements that enable us to realize the Paris Agreement. I will personally continue to work with all parties and actively engage to arrive at such an agreement. This event connects climate change and circular economy. We should indeed focus on the connections and mutual benefits of all considered policies and practices in each of these domains. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation calculated that while moving to renewables can address 55% of global greenhouse gas emissions, we need circular economy to tackle the remaining 45%. We should move beyond recycling and actively consider how we reduce, reuse, refurbish, recycle, and recover. As such, Belgium included an ambitious project in the EU Recovery and Resilience Fund. Belgium Builds Back Circular. The project enables actors within the circular economy to connect and invest in projects focusing on eco-design and the substitution of chemical substances of concern. Together with my administration, I am finalizing a proposal of the Federal Circular Economy Action Plan. This plan will contain, in addition to regional initiatives, measures covering 6 major objectives: stimulating circular products and services, encouraging more circular production methods, supporting the role of consumers and public buyers, putting in place the necessary incentives and tools, and evaluating progress. The proposal will be open for public consultation later this year once finalized. Distinguished ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget that we are working within the context of sustainable development. It means that we need to evaluate our actions against environmental, social, and economic criteria. Exercising due diligence within this context all along the value chain is crucial. I'm referring to the international standards for social responsibility like ISO 26000 and GRI. An instrument to analyze what is going on along the value chain is Life Cycle Sustainability Assessment. On the 7th of December, I'm hosting in Brussels an international seminar where the translation for guidelines for social life cycle assessment into Dutch, French, and Italian will be presented, as well as the result of pilot project applying these guidelines. Climate neutrality is the context in which we should all consider our businesses and daily activities. To conclude, I would like to draw your attention to 5 scenarios developed by my administration in collaboration with Climate Act and Veto. The 5 scenarios offer each a different pathway, using over 100 different levers on how to reach climate neutrality in Belgium in 2050. Circular economy is included as well. The study demonstrates again that it is still possible to reach climate neutrality in Belgium. I invite you to consider the report and its different scenarios and join the debate on the best, most sustainable way for Belgium to get there and how you can contribute. The report is available on our website, surveyclimate.be. I thank you for your attention, and I'm curious to hear all your considerations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katabi. I'm glad to see that Belgium will be that good represented at Glasgow, of course, with your regional colleagues. So now that we had some inspiring and intense food for thought, I propose we move on and listen to the representatives of the private and semi-public sector from the UK and from Italy. So we have, I'm really sorry for the accent, I don't speak Italian, so for the Centro per l'Innovazione di Torino, we have Massimiliano Tellini, Luca Megni for Enel, Rovena Preca for Enea, Marco Lazzaroni for SNAM, and Steve Thompson for the UK-based company, the National Grid. So they will now, all of them have the floor to present their best practices in their sector and their domain. Maybe we will start with Luca Megni, who is Global Head of Circular Economy for Enel. Enel is a major electricity producer and distributor worldwide. So with this question, Luca Megni, how is your business contributing to circular economy and to cutting down our greenhouse gases emissions?
So just following on what I was telling before, after having engaged on our transition on decarbonization, that has been the first commitment of the group. Afterward, we engaged around 5 years ago on circular economy. Circular economy for us is a key to redesign our whole business model. So it's not about recycling, it's not about a single technology. It's about applying the pillars of circular economy throughout all our business. The pillars of circular economy, the definition we use is all the material and energy we use, how we design our asset and product, how we use them, so sharing product as a service, and at the end, how we close the loop, that is remanufacturing, recycling, etc. So we have applied these 5 pillars throughout all our business. That means in working with all our suppliers, for example, in order to measure the circularity of what we buy worldwide, to make co-innovation with them to improve our circularity, etc. To redesign our key asset, photovoltaic, wind, etc., because tomorrow will not be anymore the competition between coal and renewable, because the future is renewable. The point will be sustainable renewable plants or unsustainable renewable plants. This means what material you use, what is the impact on the territory, how you close the loop, how you recover the material at the end. This is critical not just for environmental issues, but as well for geopolitical issues, because rare earths and critical material are a challenge. We are working on circular economy throughout our distribution business, so all the million of kilometers of grid we have worldwide, and with NLX, our division for the final customer, that was created in 2017 and is strongly engaged on circular economy in all its dimension, having also a strong focus on metrics, because circular economy is above all about metrics. It is in a transition that concerns economical aspects and environmental aspects, and they both have to be measured and to be measured in an end-to-end perspective. And the last topic of our focus that I wanted to mention is about cities. We have a strong focus on circular city since 3-4 years. Every year we also publish position paper on our latest achievement, our knowledge that we have developed with other stakeholders. And cities will play a more and more key role in the next years. I think that already on the decarbonization issue, the role of city has become more important. We have the pre-COP, we have in the beginning of end of September, the pre-COP in Milan. Milan, for example, is a city that is strongly committed on decarbonization. Now, and Glasgow as well is strongly committed on circular economy. And so we will see in the next year a strong protagonism for cities. And the transition toward a circular city is not just about technology. Technology is key, but technology more or less is there. It's also pretty much about the governance. It will be about how to engage the citizen, how to have a mid-long-term perspective, because the point now is not just to have a single action, single intervention, but to scale it up and accelerate in this transition. So just to highlight as well the focus, not just on a country level, but as well the role that city can play in this transition. I would stop here, and as well I'm open for any question.
Thank you. We will move on to Marco Lazzaroni. So you are Senior Vice President, Global Solution Energy Transition Services at SNAM, which is a main energy infrastructure company, helping gas providers, among other things, to bring the gas through the networks. So we were talking earlier about renewables. Since you work, among other things, in the gas sector, how do you see gas in the mix of energy when everyone talks about renewables? You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Buongiorno a tutti, buongiorno a tutte, bonjour à toutes, bonjour à tous. Hello everyone. Thank you to the ambassadors and also to the ministry. Let me just spend a couple of slides to introduce you to SNAM. And I hope you can hear me well and there's no technical, let's say, problem. SNAM, as you can see, is one of the main global energy infrastructure company and leverage from 80 years of experience in gas activity, transport, storage, and regasification, being the leader in Europe and the second largest in the world, with a network of pipes of more than 41,000 kilometers. SNAM is a listed company with 70% almost free floated and 30% mainly owned by the financial institution of CDP state government. The average value of the company is with a market cap of 17 billion and is well, let's say, expanded and present in all Europe through its subsidiaries in the UK, in France, in Austria, in Greece, that you can see in the center of this slide. Since some years, SNAM has been leading and the enabling of the energy transition, and with a major focus and a major key role player in the hydrogen value chain. Since, let's say, 3 or 5 years, SNAM has been creating 4 clear divisions dedicated to the energy transition perimeter, the ones that you see in this slide. A business unit fully dedicated to the hydrogen, a business unit fully dedicated to the biomethane value chain, named SNAM for Environment, a third division named SNAM for Mobility, aiming to support and enabling the sustainable mobility, and a fourth division completely and fully dedicated to the energy efficiency. In the middle, you can see also some name of companies that SNAM has been investing in and also acquiring, enabling SNAM to act all along the value chain of these different streams. My role is exactly to expand internationally these 4 divisions, and in order to do this and to stick to the plan that SNAM has with a very strong commitment to net zero target by 2040. And also, as you can imagine, SNAM has a very much focus on the ESG targets, and ESG factors are increasingly integrating the strategies at the core of SNAM. SNAM is expanding internationally with a rapid path of acceleration and international expansion, and is opening SNAM offices around the world, in China, in India, in the Middle East, in Israel, in the US, outside of Europe, of course, and Europe remained a main focus target. And as the speech of the ambassador at the beginning of this conference, they said that we are responsible also to enable other countries that may have not been at the center of key role and acting so far. In the future, they will be a major player in the energy transition perimeter. And I'm focusing on, by saying this, also the attention to the Africa, for example, countries, and I will come back in a few seconds on this, especially focusing on the North Africa region. As I said, at the core of the let's say energy transition focus and strategy for SNAM, we put hydrogen, and we do cover all the value chain of hydrogen, focusing from the first step, which is the generation and the production of hydrogen from renewable sources, such as wind or solar power, and producing green hydrogen. And then we're responsible to take it all the way through from storage to transport and distribution, and make sure that there is H2 adoption in the different fields, such as industry, buildings, or using an energy source for building an industry as a feedstock for industry, or as a fuel for transport. And we do believe that mobility is going to be one of the first adopter for this. So of course, the key strategic role for hydrogen is that the first, in terms of vision, is that while we are transporting today gas in our infrastructure of pipeline, tomorrow we will be able to transport green gas, and the day after tomorrow we will transport hydrogen. So why I was mentioning about the attention to Africa? We do believe that there are some countries that today are going to be the base of the future key role for setting up green hydrogen production hubs. And these countries are the ones that are more exposed to the solar energy, such as North African countries, especially North Africa, and of course also Middle East, and let's say the southern part of Mediterranean. Whereas the north part of Europe will be more active on the aeolic and wind power for production of green hydrogen. Let's go back to Africa. Why do we are focusing our attention to this region, and especially to North Africa? As you can see, SNAM and Italy represent, let's say, a bridge between North African countries and European countries. And we do believe that North African countries are the one that will be able to produce a very competitive green hydrogen that then can be exported to Europe through Italy. And I think that SNAM has a key role in this schema by using its own infrastructure to transport by pipes the green hydrogen and letting it go through all the European countries, at least the ones that are going to be the first adopters or the main, let's say, future off-takers. So we are now working very closely to all the region of North Africa, the governments and the ministers of energies to educate also what are the steps required to enable all such a context, which is not easy to to put in place, but it's a long way, but it's strategic for us and for Europe to bring these countries and let them play the strategic role they are, say, going to have certainly in the future. I just wanted to share this as a first, let's say, angle of vision of the strategy that we have in SNAM for the hydrogen, and I'm more than open to answer to questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts on the future of energy in Europe. We will now cross the sea and see what Steve Thompson has to say for National Grid. So, Steve Thompson, you are National Grid's Environment Sustainability Manager, and National Grid is an electricity and gas distribution company. So I was curious because I saw that the National Grid aims at cutting its emission by 80% in 2050. So I was very curious about how you intend to reach such a goal.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Buongiorno. You're right, National Grid. We own the high voltage electricity transmission network in England and Wales, in the UK. We also own the high pressure gas transmission network in Great Britain. And we also operate the entire electricity network across Great Britain. And the best way, I think, to think of those is to think of them like the motorways in the transport infrastructure. And so they're the high speed, moving the gas and electricity around at high speed, rather than the local distribution networks which deliver to customers. And the other thing to mention, of course, we're talking about COP26, and National Grid are a principal partner, a sponsor of COP26. We think it's really important to get behind the conference. It's a unique chance for us to call for a more ambitious action towards a clean energy future. And it's also an ideal forum, I think, to show that achieving net zero is possible with the technologies and the opportunities that we have today, and trying to demonstrate some of the things that we've been doing in the UK, and hopefully demonstrate that they're transferable to other countries as well. You're right that we've set some ambitious goals of ourselves around climate change. Our target is to reduce our own emissions by 80% by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050. Our goals are aligned to science-based targets. They're accredited by science-based targets. And I'm going to spend kind of the next few minutes talking mainly about some of the things we're doing in the circular economy space, rather than climate change. But just to touch upon those targets, we see that it's a combination, achieving those targets is a combination of the actions we can take ourselves. So there are some things that we can get on with and do, such as replacing our vehicles, our fleet vehicles with electric vehicles. There are some things, because we're a highly regulated business, where we need to work very closely with our regulator in order to ensure that we've got the right level of funding, and that works in terms of not having too much of an impact on customer bills, for investment in new technologies to reduce emissions from our network. And then there is the role that we play in enabling that wider energy transition and that transition to lower carbon technologies, such as connecting renewable energy to our network. And the kind of secondary impact of that is it also helps us to reduce our own emissions in operating the network, and so there's a win-win there. And it's a huge challenge in order to reach net zero. And I think previous presenters have talked about the role of hydrogen, and I think particularly in the UK and parts of particularly Northern Europe, the challenge regarding the decarbonisation of heat will be probably the biggest challenge that we face in achieving those goals. So as I said, I'm going to spend a little bit of time now, though, just to talk about some of the things we're doing in the circular economy space. Now, we don't necessarily call these circular economy at National Grid, but I think they're embedded in the principle of reuse, of refurbishment, of reducing and minimizing the amount of waste that we produce, and recycling as much as we possibly can. We have a responsible business charter at National Grid, which sets out what being a responsible business means to us. It covers 5 key areas, one of which is the environment, and it focuses on where we can have the biggest material impact. So we're focusing on things where we can really have an impact in having a positive impact on society. So when I talk about resources and materials, that can cover a whole range of things. That can cover everything from the aluminium and steel that goes into our electricity wires and cables, through to gas meters and electricity meters, and right through to the items we sell in our office restaurants. And we try to apply the same principles to any of those products. And I think there are two key things for me, really. Firstly, reusing as many resources as possible is more efficient. It saves us money as a company if we can reuse materials. And obviously it's good for the environment. Reducing the amount of materials has a positive environmental impact. Now, we've all seen the devastating impact that plastics can have on our oceans. And that's obviously, by reducing the amount of plastics we use, we can have a positive environmental impact, but also reducing the amount of materials that we consume reduces the energy consumption associated with going into making those materials. And so there's certainly a huge environmental impact of doing this as well. Now, as I say, we try to embed those principles of reuse and minimizing waste throughout our business. So let me give you some kind of real examples of how we do that. We have centres to refurbish the equipment that we use in our electricity network. So we've got 2 refurbishment centres located in England, and that allows us to extend the life of assets and materials that go onto our network, such as high voltage circuit breakers. So these are big pieces of equipment that go onto the transmission network. We also have what we call recovery centres in both the UK and the United States. So half of our business is US based, which I didn't touch upon earlier. And what we do there is we take old pieces of equipment, such as gas meters, and refurbish them for a new life. And if we can't do that, we strip them back to make sure that the metals and other materials that are contained within them can be reused and recycled. I mean, the other thing I should mention about these centres as well is that they also play a role in supporting more vulnerable members of society. So in our US recovery centre, we employ people with learning difficulties or physically challenged workers. And this enables the people who might otherwise find it difficult to gain employment, to have meaningful jobs, as well as performing roles that have a positive societal benefit. And I think that's just an example of where lots of areas of the environment and being a responsible business kind of cross over and touch each other and interact. And the kind of roles that people perform in those centres are sorting out scrap metals and wires, de-reeling cables and wires, shredding paper, separating street lights and gas and electric meters. So there's a really important role in separating out those materials for reuse. And moving forward, what we're looking to do is commit to adopting kind of circular economy principles into the design of our equipment. The biggest challenge that we face there is undoubtedly that the lifetime of our equipment is sometimes as long as 60 years. And so designing those principles in now for something that's going to be on the network for that length of time is a challenge, but we're committed to try and do that. And then finally, I mentioned that we apply the principles of minimizing waste to as many of our activities as possible. And I think it's important as well to engage with all of our employees on these issues. And so we ran a campaign to reduce the amount of single-use plastics in our offices. This was called, the campaign was called Evie's Whale. It was inspired by the daughter of one of our employees called Evie, who made a drawing of a whale because she was so upset about images that she'd seen of whales dying due to plastic pollution in our oceans. And so that campaign was to reduce the amount of plastics that we sell and use in our offices. And by promoting it in that way through the Evie's Whale campaign, it brought this commitment to life, and it provided a real platform for us to engage with our employees and our suppliers about reusable cups and other materials and effective recycling behaviours. And so we've done this in our main office in the UK, and we've successfully eliminated over 5 million different items, ranging from plastic straws and cutlery to polystyrene containers and plastic containers. But I think hopefully we've also influenced a lot of the people who work for National Grid to think differently about how they use everyday items and try and think about that idea of recycling and reusing as much as possible. There's still a lot more we can do, but I think embedding these principles in everything that we do is good for the environment, it's good for our company, and hopefully it can inspire and encourage people to do more. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing all your engagements in your sector. I think it's really inspiring. I think we can move on to our next company, which is Enea, represented today by Rowena Preka. So you are a full-time researcher at Enea. Enea, I talked about it as a private sector, but it's a bit a public body aimed at researching and in technological innovation and also supporting enterprises and public bodies to do more in a circular economy. So I was curious, Enea, because it is a company that is a bit between the public, the private, and the citizen. So I was curious about how you think of those interactions.
So hello, thank you all. I'm Rowena Preka, and I'm a researcher at Enea, which is the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energy, and Sustainable Economic Development. Let's say just a couple of words about Enea. It was born in 1960, and it is a public body, as you were saying, aimed at technological innovation and supporting small medium enterprises, but also the civil society. We have 9 research centers all around Italy and other laboratories. We are divided in 4 departments. We have the Energy Technologies Department, the Energy Efficiency Unit Department, the Fusion and Technology for Nuclear Power, and the Territorial and Production Systems Department, which is the department I'm coming from. And let's say that it is also as our colleagues were talking about how we contribute on circular economy, in the reality, our business is a circular economy. So just a few words about why circular economy, although we have already gone through this, but since we talk about the link between the emissions and circular economy, we should also say that we also have a problem of resources. So it is not only associated to the emissions problem, so climate change emissions, but we also have a problem with the resources. In fact, as you can see from this slide, we have tripled the annual global extraction of materials since 1970 to 2017, and it is continuing to grow. So additionally, more than 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress come from resource extraction and processing. In addition, clearly we have, as the Minister Katabi was saying before, we have the 45% of the emissions are associated to the products, and only 55% of the emissions are connected to the energy. So we have, let's say, a double problem: the resources and the emissions. In fact, linking it to the climate change and to the abutment of the emissions, reports, say that the circular economy has the power to cut down the emissions by 39%, which is really a huge opportunity. As we can see, if we don't do anything, clearly we will have a big stress on resource extraction and other emissions, as the chart is showing it on your left. But if we intervene, so if we do some rapid reduction on resource extraction, on emissions, then we can slow down the ecological footprint. This is just a short, exhibition of what is the country overshoot days, just to tell that we are living up. we are consuming more materials that we can afford. In fact, the country overshoot days, as you can see, which is the day where all the materials we have would finish if we lived as, for example, like Italians do in Italy. The whole materials would have finished by 13th of May. So we are really living without considering the future generations and the materials that we have. So getting back to the circular economy, it is a change of paradigm. We cannot talk only about, as my previous colleagues were saying, it is not about recycling, it is not about only some things, but it is about changing the whole paradigm. It is about a systemic intervention in all our levels and in all our lifestyles. In fact, as you can see, we first begin from the eco-design. So the first principle is to reduce. So it's to build our products and to live our lives using less materials. Then we can go through with the efficient use of the materials, with the logistics. For example, we need to share services, we need to share service models. For example, we need to share, we need to do circular business models. It is not about only managing the end of life, but also trying to recover what we have done until now, like, for example, urban mining, landfill mining. We need to put up collection systems, reuse models, and then clearly recycles. Then we also have instruments to do the transition from the linear economy to the circular economy. So some examples, for example, are the green public procurement, circular procurement, primary and secondary stocks and streams valorization. So we need to have a systemic approach. We don't have only one solution, but we have a set of solutions. So this is where Enea works mostly on, because we support the government, we support the small medium enterprises, we support the whole production system in the reality, and the civil society. We do it by developing eco-design solutions, for example, lifespan extensions, waste prevention, recyclability, durability, or easy disassembly. We develop technologies and methodologies for closing the loops, which is a very important issue in the circular economy, and then, which is very important for the production system, implementing new business models and consumption patterns, which are based on a systemic eco-innovation, sharing and service instead of product ownership. And other best practices as industrial symbiosis. So what is Enea doing for circular economy? We work on product eco-innovation, on process eco-innovation, on system eco-innovation, and we have competencies on tools on indicators, for example. So tools for circularity measurements, support for legislation development and compliance, promotion of initiatives such as national initiatives, regional, and at international level. Last but not least, we are very much engaged on formation and information of all the levels of the society. The Enea is part of a number of European networks on circular economy. Some of these are the European Circular Economy Research Alliance, because we are, let's say that we are an applied research company, agency, so we are also on the research side. We're part of the European Resource Efficiency Knowledge Center, part of the European phosphorus platform, which is very important, for the a whole circular economy issue, and also part of the European Raw Materials Alliance. But let's say that what is more important for the meeting today is that ENEA is the national hub for circular economy, and it is also, let's say that the mirror of the European Stakeholder platform on circular economy, which has been promoted by the European Commission, and it was born on 2017. Following this, ENEA has also founded the Italian platform of circular economy Stakeholder, which brings this way ENEA at the center of the circular economy in Italy. In fact, we are also collaborating with the Ministry of Ecological Transition for a number of projects on circular economy, and we are also supporting a number of small medium enterprises on bringing projects on circular economy. What is exactly doing this Italian Stakeholder platform on circular economy? The purpose is to first of all promote the knowledge and diffusion of the circular economy, because it is let's say one of the biggest issues to try if we want to change the paradigm. In fact, for example, this meeting today is very important for understanding and try to put in life other lifestyles, because we can only do it, the transition to circular economy, we can only do it together. The production system, the consumption system, but also the public bodies. So we need to work all together. We need to, what we are doing in the Italian Stakeholder platform for circular economy is also favoring initiatives to integration at the Italian level. What is very important is the mapping of the Italian best practices, because this way we can overcome the fragmentation of the Italian initiatives. Circular economy is very focused on the systemizing the best practices. We cannot do if we are fragmented in small best practices. We need to create a permanent operational tool that can facilitate the intersectorial interactions, and then clearly promote the Italian excellence and the Italian way of making circular economy, because it is clear that every country needs to adapt it to its tradition and typicality of its cultural and social models. Which are the relevant themes? As said, we have eco-innovation, research, development, and technology transfer, but also regulatory, financial, and market instruments. We collaborate with international standards, with the definition of the international standards of the circular economy. We also collaborate and produce measurement tools and indicators. We give guidance and support to businesses, promotion of new cultural approaches and lifestyles, which is also, let's say, the most sensible part of this transition. Which are the instruments? We have a web platform to facilitate exchange of information and best practices. We support for the participation of the European Stakeholder platform on circular economy. We're part of the coordination group, and we have also a number of working groups on the Italian circular economy stakeholders platform. The priorities of this platform, which is, as I said, the only platform on circular economy that brings together public bodies, small medium enterprises, other production systems, third civil society, is we have. I mean, these priorities I divided also in working groups. So we work on the context, which is the governance, the training, information, and culture. Then infrastructural overall system, Then we work on tools, which is the economic instruments, the regulatory instruments, like, for example, the simplification of fulfillment of administrative procedures. Then we work on instruments for measurement. Then we work on the action side, so eco-design and sustainable consumption models, byproducts and recycled products market, and then integrated planning and circular urban and territorial management. This is the platform. We have the web site is the www.ehs.it. You can find everything inside this website, such as the best practices database, the working group description, and other enrolled companies and other actors. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rowena. It was really, really interesting. I think now we will move on to our last guest from the Centro per l'Innovazione di Torino. So I think this is the one who should be in presential today, right? Yes. So I introduce Massimiliano Tellini. So you are an expert in circular economy and how to finance it. These, of course, are really interesting topics. I would like to ask you, because one of the topics at the agenda of the COP26 brought up by the presidency is precisely how to bring up the private funds and all that money for the transition. So how should we finance circular economy and how to bring up some funds?
First of all, let me thank the ambassador for hosting such an interesting, I would say also exciting event, and the Minister and the Ambassador of the United Kingdom for your leadership in leading up the conversation up to COP26. From my personal perspective, let me be just a little bit provocative in terms of what a financial institution like Intesa Sanpaolo has been doing. As you all know, Intesa Sanpaolo is the biggest bank in Italy and among the top 3 at European level. So for us, circular economy is a matter of strategic innovation, and as many our colleagues have been already saying, I think it's important to stress, we are not talking about just waste management. And again, if I may, even a little bit more provocative, I would say that we really want to choose the right words, because somehow sustainability, which is a tremendously important topic, has been struggling and somehow even successful over the last 25 years in making the actual system more sustainable. Circular economy is something else. Circular economy does want to change the system. So again, the future is yours. And I believe that, among us, you are the leaders of tomorrow. You are the politicians of tomorrow. You are the regulators of tomorrow. So, from my personal perspective, I would say it's crucial that you do embrace, if you believe, this concept at the highest ambition level that it could be done. And in a nutshell, circular economy, as the definition says, is the new economy. I would try to emphasize again how much important it is to drive the attention and the energy, not just focusing on the paramount importance of the environmental aspects, but actually on the industrial one, on the strategic value that circular economy can have in enhancing the competitiveness of the European economic system, of the European industrial system. Don't forget, we are talking about a system which is aiming to decouple the economic and social development from the exploitation of finite natural resources. This is the definition of the circular economy, which has been given by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and which is, among the most authoritative players in this field. And we, as a bank, we are the first bank globally being strategic partner of such an organization. That's why our strategy, we believe, is able to support business, but also has the chance to redesign the paradigm. Has been said, circular economy is a new paradigm. And so, just to go back to the question, for sure, we have been putting forward 6 billion euros credit facility. It's a standard credit, but it's a credit which is aimed to support innovative projects that companies are embracing in order to shift and accelerate the systemic transition to the circular economy. And so again, let me give another point of reflection, if you deem as appropriate, in terms of why this can really see Europe leading the conversation and leading actually globally the transition to this new system. Circular economy, it's systemic in nature. We cannot achieve circularity without working along, without working on a supply chain, on a value chain approach. For sure, there is an important component which is looked at how output from some productions can become input for others. That's no doubt. Industrial ecology is there to testify such an important role. But innovation is key in the circular economy. And if I can leave a specific word that you want to maybe reflect on when you think about your future developments in this topic, I think about design, or even redesign. You know, we Italians have been pretty good in design, and this place is, I think, one of the great testimony to this kind of mastery. But really, the key point of circularity is not in the waste management. It's a tiny part. It's for sure it's important, but not as much as design, because everything has been already designed in a linear way. So now everything has to be redesigned. And that's where younger generation are key. This is where innovation and creativity kicks in. This is where collaboration is crucial, because also entrepreneurs do have the chance to redesign business models, but only working along other entrepreneurs, and usually they also discover new opportunities working together with entrepreneurs that before were not even known being in the value chain. I give you just a quick example, concrete example. Look at the city of Milan. The city of Milan is considered one of the periphery of the Milan city as one of the biggest agribusiness districts for our country. Well, 3 years ago, a study was carried out studying how the agribusiness production was producing waste, and you look at the skin of potato. Well, when you look at the burning of this clean potato to produce heat, you produce value for €1. When you look at the same product and you try to add, of course, through innovation, some value for that potato skin to become component of soundproof panels for the construction industry, the value rises to €5. This is a circular economy. This is exactly how you connect different business and different industries, creating new products for new markets. And let me add another topic about what's your role, I think, in this game. Because we, as professionals, and looking specifically at the financial industry, for sure, that, by the way, somehow has also been seen in the past as an obstacle to the financial and to the financing of the circular economy. And actually, we, in our specific case, we believe we are one of the strongest habilitators of the circular transition. Well, finance does have a strong role in supporting companies, in supporting entrepreneurs, and so somehow pushing the supply within the market. I personally believe now it's time to build also the demand. This is where society, where students, where us as citizens, we do play a pivotal role in asking companies to produce in a circular way. This is where I believe the strengthening of this transition will be clear and will actually be real for generations to come. Just to go back to the slides, I don't want to waste your time on slides, but it's important for us to recognize that the ambition has to be comprehensive. And so, as we've been saying, circular economy, it's a matter of strategic reorientation. It's a cultural mind shift. Education is key. Education is going to be pivotal if we want to address how the linear system has been learned about on books over the last 150 years in universities, and how we can reframe the conversation about business development, how we can reframe the conversation about how finance can support those businesses. And let me think again about a specific example. When you look at the real estate sector, you think about an elevator. Elevators usually are being guaranteed 20 years. In the circular economy space, what's happening is that who is going to produce the elevator doesn't sell you the elevator anymore. They sell us the service of vertical mobility. They want to retain the ownership of the asset because the materials, the resources that are within the elevator are so precious and important to that company that we, as users, we don't understand pretty much the value. So they want to retain the ownership. So there is also a different cash flow being financed for that kind of project, but be careful. An elevator being used for circular purposes is going to be guaranteed 40 years. It's a different business model for that company, and we can process and we can go ahead. Take lighting. Companies are not selling bulbs anymore. They are selling us pay per service. They are selling us the servicing of lighting. They are selling us the servicing of carpeting. They are selling us the service of mobility. This is the true nature of the transition which is happening. And that's where finance, and I believe that our role as a financial institution is also to support and somehow solicit a reflection also at European institutional level. And thanks to our great colleagues here in Brussels, we have been able to somehow steer the conversation with the members of the European institutions in order to make sure that not only the business sense of this transition is clear, but also the geostrategic consequences of such a transition can be really appreciated. If you think for a sec about what's happening right now, you can realize how solar panels and wind turbines are the most sort of common tools that we do use for our renewability. Well, there is not much of Europe in those kind of technologies. And if you think about what can happen with the transition to a circular economy, just going back to the words of Frans Timmermans, the first vice president of the European Commission back in 2015, the circular economy is the only way forward for the European economy, because we, as Europeans, we do import 6 times what we are able to export. That's why the circular economy is the only way forward. I conclude here. I just wanted to make sure that for us, this is a sort of collective action for change. And I would say there is no better time right now, COP26 and beyond, to make sure that your voice and the voice of who wants to design a different future, a circular future, can be heard. And of course, this collective action can lead to a big change which is going to last for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very lively introduction and very inspiring words. So now that we have, so thank you to all the companies who presented today. So now is showtime, because this is the time for you to speak out and to react about what you heard today. So I will start maybe with a bit of a provocative question to set the debate. You heard maybe some good examples today of companies, but in general, do you think that companies and the private sector is doing enough to fight climate change? Is there there's an answer there? Maybe you can raise your arm. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to speak. I would like to share maybe, for me, one of the biggest worries that I hear around me as a climate activist. And the biggest is maybe the false solutions. So hearing so many presentations, maybe for me, what is missing here today is also the words of external experts that are not linked to companies, to be able to have also other views on these solutions. I think we are moving forward. We cannot deny that. But I think we are very far away from where we should be. And I don't think this is my thoughts, but this is also what has been reminded, what the IPCC reminded us again this summer. What I hear is that in 2030, we will reach the 1.5-degree warming. And this is very worrying when we know that this is one of the goals of the Paris Agreement. And I will not even be 30 when we reach it. So today, I think it is not a point of view of youth, but of experts, that we are not where we have to be. And maybe since we talked so much about one solution, which is, according to the experts that were here today, gas, I would like to ask if this is a climate solution or a political solution. Because what I hear from experts is that it is still very dangerous, because it will release, okay, less CO2, but more methane. And this is also a gas that we have to be very afraid of, since it will not help the climate crisis. Therefore, today, I am also worried about the solutions on the table, and I want to make sure that today we clearly define what are climate solutions and what are political solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Indeed, I wanted to hear you, and that was one of my next questions, kind of like what is because we hear a lot about the input of the private sector, but I would like to hear you on the balance of the private sector, the consumers, and the political representatives. Because I've heard some companies talking about the importance of behavioral changes on the side of the consumers, and that is of course one part of the solution. But yeah, maybe in the audience you have some insights about the balance between these three parts of our societies. Don't hesitate. So we will collect 3 questions from the audience. So if you have questions to ask to the companies or for the debate or to the minister eventually, please feel free to ask them as well. And in the meantime, yeah, don't hesitate to react on what you have heard. Maybe another question that I had by hearing the companies is that we hear a lot about, I think the last company you talked about a change of paradigm and a new way of thinking. I had in mind that the circular economy and also necessary to cut our greenhouse gases emissions is the importance of sobriety, so consuming less. Yeah, I was curious about maybe the companies think, but also of course our audience think about this notion when we live in an economic system that's always geared towards growth. How are these concepts related, and how can you make it about this in the future?
Thank you very much. Also for taking the time to give the voice to the youth, but also as climate activist and quite a new one. My question would be, you talking about new paradigm, new view of thinking the future, but how do we make the difference between what is greenwashing and what is not? I've been searching a little bit about the different companies present today and about the UK government taking those companies, and what I've seen is that it's not always perfect. I'm not searching about perfect, I'm not asking about perfect, but I'm asking how do we, all the way out here in this place, how do we trust those companies? How do we trust the politician behind it? That's basically my question. I know it's not an easy question, but I'm afraid of what is ahead of us. As said at the lady next to me, the target that those companies and that those politicians are proposing us are not enough today. I'm sorry, that's not me that I'm saying this, that's scientists. And I'm just listening to them, and I want them to be listened even more. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to be in this gathering. Actually, it happened to me by chance because one of my friends was not able to present here, and she gave me the floor to. She gave me the chance to participate in this interesting lecture. At the moment, I'm not an environmental activist, but based on what I heard from the different lectures and different companies that were presented here. Actually, at the moment, private sector and the whole business must be agile in the environment, the business environment, and must be profitable. What we are talking about environment, when we take into account the profitability of the companies, in a way, CEOs and owners and entrepreneurs, they are not that much concerned about environment because they have to make money. And when money comes into account, it is really hard to make a balance between making money and making the environment safer. So I think if we want to take care of the environment, it's better to go into non-profit organizations, those organizations that specifically their core of concentration is not in making money, but in taking care of something bigger than money, which is, I think it is the concentration of NPOs in that sector. Yeah, and private sector is mostly going to be in the competition of being successful, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so not much hope for the environment and private sector here. Maybe you have another insight. Also, I forget to say, but don't hesitate to say your name and where you come from when you start to speak.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Benedetta, and I am part of the Association of Italian Students at the ULB University. And I would like to build up actually on what some of my of the other people that intervened say, because. For example, I just recently graduated and I will start working in a private company, so no NPOs, no government. And I think that what private companies have to do is really to influence the masses. And for me, like a personal question that I have also for myself, that I asked myself when I actually signed the contract to start working in a private company was, how do I let's say, how do I conciliate my willingness for a better future to working in a for-profit organization? How also companies, like private companies, have tried to balance these things? And I think it's something that is it's a very good point for me, because of course there's the need for growth. So companies need to be profitable, they need to be growing, etc. But now you cannot anymore say, okay, I just have to make profit, so I will continue, I don't know, selling meat or producing in sweatshop in Bangladesh. I think that now what companies really have to do is try to shift the mindset also of the consumers and say, okay, now I will maybe send my jeans for, I don't know, 20 euros more, but be fair for the workers and also for the environment, because of course this is another dimension. And that's, I think, what really private companies should strive for, to really balance and try to reduce the overconsumption while being good for the environment. So that's a point that I would like to raise. So in the private sector, how to try to make the balance between being profitable and also helping the environment and shifting the mindset of the consumers. Because of course, I can buy secondhand, I can not eat meat and try to do my best on my own. But I think privates have a huge responsibility on trying to educate us as customers.
Thank you very much. It's true. We know that there was a famous study in France from Carbon 4 who showed that even if all consumers were truly heroes for the climate, we will only reach a cut of 45% of what France should reduce their emission for. So the rest is also a burden for the companies and the political power. So thank you for your insights. I think it's really true. It's interesting to hear that because companies also sometimes raise the importance of consumers should change behaviors, but now we hear also that companies have a responsibility in shifting the consumers' behaviors as such. So I think these are really important insights. I rebound on what you say. I wanted to know in the audience, as students and future professionals and workers, like how would you work for a company that does not care about the environment, and like how do you, as a future professional, see this matter of climate issues?
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Milan. I'm from Belgium. I'm a student at the VUB, and I'm also a member of the Flemish Youth Council. So responding to your question, that is really one of my first things when I think about, okay, where do I want to work? I want to work for a company or for a governmental institution which thinks about my future. I don't want to work at a company which is actually ruining my future or making it harder to actually live a peaceful life, to say. So it will always be a consideration. And I think also for a lot of young people, like, what does this company do for the environment specifically? And what I also want to say is that we've seen a lot of good examples when it comes to circular economy, but I wonder, do these companies also want to be sustainable on everything they do, or only when it fits in their business plan? I'm thinking about a lot of these companies, they work together in cooperation with other private sector companies. And those private sector companies, they do not necessarily have the same ambition when it comes to climate change, when it comes to sustainability. So are you willing to move your money, to divest, to when you look at, okay, where does a profit go to? Are you willing to say to these shareholders, okay, look, if you're not investing this money in things that are good for our future, then you are not a suitable shareholder of our company? Are we willing to say that? Because it's really more than just doing these projects which fit your business plan about circular economy. Companies also have power. The private sector has power. It's about what you lobby for with politicians. And I think that's maybe a bigger question about how sustainable can all these companies be, but more holistically, more from a broader point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's true that there also are questions about how companies can be sustainable from the inside. How do we accept companies to be ruled and steered by profit in these organizations? So that's also maybe a food for thought for the companies, is how their internal governance can maybe move on to be more related and coherent with their environmental engagements. So I don't know if you also have more questions, because we still collect questions to the companies as well. So don't hesitate to intervene. Yes.
Hello everyone. I'm Lino. I'm the UN Youth Delegate for Biodiversity in Belgium. And since this position, I'm wondering how the circular economy is tackling the biodiversity loss. Since we know that IPCC and IPBES launched a report saying basically that we cannot tackle one issue without tackling the other one. I mean, for the gas, for instance, how can we be sure that it's energy for the transition, that it's really a good energy in the way that it respects also the biodiversity crisis? Because we know that, for instance, in Belgium, I think that 40% of our agriculture production is dedicated to the biofuels. So it's agri-industrial practices, and I don't think it's really sustainable for the future. And I wonder how those issues of biodiversity are being tackled by the circular economy. And another quick thought that I had is so I truly believe in the intelligence of closing the loop, and so the mind behind the circular economy. But I'm wondering if the reflection shouldn't be wider. For instance, we talked a bit about the fashion industry, and I mean, if the fashion industry is closing the loop, yes, it's cool. But if it doesn't reduce its production, I don't think we will have meet the goal for the future. So if we recycle, if we recycle, okay, it's a good step forward. I know it's not all about recycling in circular economy, but if we don't reduce the production in itself, I drop the bomb word. If we don't degrowth a bit, how can we make it? So that's it.
Thank you very much, Lino. Are there other questions in the audience? Or maybe we can give the floor to one or two companies to react on this notion of sobriety or even degrowth, if you dare.
Sorry, I think from my point of view, I found very interesting all the points raised, and as a competence from my also role and job, let me express my opinion both as let's say working within SNAM and also as an individual facing the same ambition. I think all our companies are now defining a purpose which is above profit targets. And we do understand, I think everybody here in this conference do understand that we are in a transition phase. We are all aiming to decarbonize, and that doesn't come in 24 hours to change attitudes, to change habits, to change cultures. But we do need everybody's effort. Small changes all together can make really huge changes. And so from my side and as an individual, I wanted to join SNAM exactly for this. There is a lot of investments done by SNAM in such an energy transition. We are aiming to build an hydrogen ecosystem that is going to be, let's say, will start to work in 2030. And but for 2030 or 2040 or 2050, we need an urgent action now. We start to invest now. We need infrastructures now. We have to build all this right now to enable us, our children, and new generations to profit from this change. So there's a kind of understanding that we have, the beginners of this transition, and all the actions and all the efforts we are putting on the table have to be combined, synergic, and for a global result. So I do understand some of the sentences that have been raised, and I do, let's say, receive them as a positive energy towards this common and global purpose. That's my view. But I leave also my colleagues to intervene and to integrate and to comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any reaction on this from our students here? Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Theo, I'm a UC Louvain student. And yeah, just to react on what he said, I'm really disappointed because I feel like every speaker presents circular economy, but not sustainable circular economy. I feel like the main, the first goal should be first sobriety, and then we can think about design, eco-design and think. But any speaker spoke about this, so I'm kind of disappointed and upset. And then if private company does not get that point, then I think that politicians should have that goal, and so I think that the importance of policies to reach this goal is more and more important nowadays. That's my point of view.
I'm not answering the questions because we don't have answers. We have a lot of answers. This is the point. But I just wanted to say that since I'm coming from the public administration, we're a public body, so we're not representing any private company. What I wanted to say to the first question, to the first colleague, was that unfortunately we don't have a unique solution. We have a set of solutions. Each of us have to do its own part. As I said, you have the private companies that are shifting to circular economy, and for example, Marco Lazzaroni was on my point of view was telling, well, because this is their part. Then you have the public part, you have the legislation, you have the incentives from the public institutions, which are also in place, but you also have all the consumption part, which is true. It is not the only part doing the shift, the transition to the circular economy, but we are all inside. We have to change our lifestyles. And since you were talking about, for example, this is the solution for the energy is focusing on gas. It is not true. It is one of the solutions. So either for the energy transition, both to energy transition and circular transition, we don't have only one solution. We have a set of solutions, and we need to change our mindsets. We need to change our lifestyles, our businesses. Also, for example, circular business models are very important for the transition to the circular economy. And for sure, it is done by the private sector. It is not, we shouldn't look only at one side, only at one solution. We need to be aware of the fact that we have many parts, many best practices that we have to bring together and try to complete this transition. We have just started the transition for circular economy, and unfortunately, it will last a lot, the transition, and you are the ones that will hopefully will complete the transition to the circular economy. This is just what I wanted to say, because we are part of the, let's say, independent experts, because we're public. That is everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I rebound on this because earlier you said the sentence, we can only do it together. And that reminded me, of course, of all the debates on climate justice and the goal of leaving no one behind. In Belgium today, we know that the prices of the energy are going up tremendously, and this, of course, asks question of energy precariousness and in general access to energy. So I wanted to know in the audience, is that an issue you are engaged in, and what could we do to prevent these problems also of energy, because that's a big deal, of course.
Thank you very much. Sorry for taking the floor a second time, but I think this is a crucial point to talk about climate justice. We talked a lot about our future and tomorrow and 2030, 2050, and the start of the transition 2030. It cannot happen in 24 hours. Yeah, of course, we are all aware of that. But the real challenge is that it's not about our future. It's not about my kids. It's not about me when I will be a teacher or when I will be working in this society. It's about people already suffering today. It's about people already being touched today. And it's about a social justice because it's about the fact that the people who emit the most emissions into the atmosphere are the ones who are less touched by the consequences. And the people who are the most touched by the consequences are actually the people less responsible for this crisis. And so I think this is a bigger challenge. It's not about CO2 in the atmosphere. It's really a whole deep change that we need to do, and that's why it will not take 24 hours and tomorrow we will not be neutral in carbon. But it's crucial to realize that we cannot talk about 2030, 2050. That is a real privilege that we take and that we decide to take. But it's about the change that we decide to make today. And everybody, of course, has their own role to play, and us youth also have different roles. But we also have the role to remind adults that time is ticking and that experts are not being enough listened to. And if I can use a metaphor, if today the house is burning, like Greta Thunberg keeps reminding us, it is not the little steps that will allow us to make it stop. It is not all of us putting a little bit of water in our glass and throwing in the fire. We need to call the fireman. We need to take big actions. We need really big change. And therefore, little steps will not allow us to make this emergency go away very fast. Thank you.
Well, thank you for this intervention. I think that's a good reminder to have before the COP26 and our political representatives. I see there's again a reaction. Yeah, you have the floor.
Thank you. No, just because I'm part, as I said, of the public sector. So just to give, I absolutely share the worry about about climate justice, social justice. In fact, just to bring one hint, things are changing. They're not rapidly changing, which I completely share the point that we need to do much more action on this. But just to bring some, let's say, some positivity on this discussion, is that, for example, Paris Agreement has recognized that the developed countries have contributed mostly to the emissions, to the climate change that we are suffering together, and that there is and that there is an injustice towards the developing countries that which need to take action together for climate change, because unfortunately today we cannot do it only on the developing countries, on the developed countries, on the side of the developed countries. But Paris Agreement has also founded a fund for the developing countries, where the developed countries need to transfer money, assistance, and investments for climate adaptation and climate mitigation actions. This means that not everything is lost, in the sense that it is not an aid to the developing countries, but it is a recognition of the responsibility of the developing countries. On my point of view, this is a revolutionary way of thinking. And it is, let's say, the first time that in an international convention, in an international agreement, we have recognized this responsibility. This is a positive point. Then for sure, we need to take much more action. We need to do everything. And I can also add that not all developed countries have transferred the money or the assistance that they need to. And sure, we have the theory, but then the practice, which is not exactly following the theory, but at least we are starting having the theory. I understand your point of view. I understand that we need to do it much more rapidly, but just to bring this, on my point of view, it is very important that this concept has passed. There is a responsibility of the developed countries towards the developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's also a good reminder that we all agree on, as the North indeed has a responsibility towards the South and the richer towards the poorer, because they suffer from unequal way. I think we reach up to noon. Maybe there's a final reaction from the audience. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Victor. I'm a graduating bioengineer from the VUB. So changing is really hard. I think everyone that has taken a New Year's resolution knows this. But one aspect I want to resonate in this beautiful Italian room is, and that also really important for both politicians as well as private sector, as well as climate activists, I think, is don't be afraid of new technologies. So often we negligate some technologies and we say, no, this is a false solution, too quick, I think, as well. Of course, we have to look into these false solutions, and there are some of them, but there are plenty of things that are put on the table by scientists: nuclear energy, genetic engineered crops, products as a service, hydrogen as energy battery. There are plenty of things that are put on the table. Look into them and make them work in this circular economy scheme. Don't close your eyes for something because you initially think, oh no, this has this and this consequence. So don't be scared as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're gonna close there then. Maybe I will wrap up some of the main ideas of the youth that we heard today. So we all agree that things are changing on our side, of course, on the sides of companies as well. We heard some interesting commitments, but because there is a but, maybe it's not enough today. We heard a lot of worries on the side of the youth today as about companies are maybe not doing enough, afraid, of course, of general problems of the general paradigm of growth, the worrying that maybe companies will not shift towards something, towards more sobriety, whether in their internal governance or towards their activities. Their economic activities, so some worrying that private sector will not shift fast enough, and the importance then of the political power to steer such change if companies do not do it on their own. So these were, of course, worrying. Also, I hope that as companies you heard that if you want to engage to hire youth and brilliant professional, we expect you to be engaged in environmental matters as well. So yeah, these were some interesting wrap-up and some messages that I hope the companies and the political representatives heard today. Know that these messages, because we took notes, of course, of what you brought up today, this will be written down in a report. A short report. You can, until Friday the 17th, you can give your feedback and send additional thoughts to this report. So we have really all of what you thought, and this report will be sent to the organization of the Youth4Climate Driving Ambition Summit in Milan by September. So if you are not going to attend it, know that your thoughts will be brought up there at Milan and then at Glasgow, of course. So thank you very much for your words and your interesting inputs. I hope your engagement will be honored, nationally and internationally. I will stop talking now and give the final words to Mr. the Ambassador. First, maybe the Minister Katabi, you want to end up?
I understand your worries and your skepticism. And I'm not sure, well, I'm convinced that that my answer will not satisfy you, so I will not answer to the question. I just want to say you that as ecologist, as activist, I totally agree with what I've heard here. And I just want to say you're too young, but we come from so far. So thank you for continuing to be critical and demanding, because it is thanks to this that that our ambitions has been raised even if it remains insufficient. So continue to do what we're asking to the youth. So continue to be critical and demanding. So thank you for that.
Minister, I have nothing to add except to say that this is, I think it has been a great opportunity, Minister, Ambassador, and all friends, not just to talk about circular economy, but to do circular dialogue. I think that all our position is very, very symbolic. And a huge grazie to everyone, and to be continued.
Then I will conclude now. I guess these thoughts will continue to grow up, both in your private life, in your professional conversations with your teachers and co-students, and up to the COP26. Thank you, everyone.